keep you updated. What is going on? What is happening? And of course, you can always follow our social media platforms for pictorial, updates. Yes, for pictorial updates and also for videos to follow what is happening at the inauguration. All right, just as mentioned earlier, we have an analyst joining in as we look through the trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. We have FUAD SAHEED joining in via the phone line. Good morning, FUAD.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. And thank God it's Friday.
Why do we always say that? Because we still work weekends.
They do.
I just try to understand.
Let's play along now.
Okay, let's not be as if we are not there. All right. Thank you very much, FUAD. Well, on a lighter note, that is, but then still on a lighter note, the major headline on the front page of the Guardian newspaper as the Minister of Aviation scores himself 100% on failed carrier, MRO, and airport concessions. We're talking about the. In recent times, FUAD, I'm sure you remember, there's been some sort of performance review that has been happening for the past 2 weeks as regards the different ministries and departments and agencies in the in government. And now, after 8 years and 15.9 billion naira after, what is the story of Nigeria Air?
You're asking me?
Maybe you know someone.
Have you seen any flight? No. The story of Nigeria is that, look, it hasn't seen the light of the day. I don't think, I don't know. The headline says he scores himself 100%. Is that what the headline says?
Yeah, the Minister of Aviation.
Well, like Yoruba, Sarah Alungbeaga. He has the right to score himself 110% if he wants to. But the reality is that if there's any, project of this particular government that has failed, I think the Nigeria Air Project 2 is one of them. If he scores himself 100%, maybe he can say he knows that we know. But the reality is that as today, Nigeria Air, as an airline, is not flying our skies. I don't think it has made any inaugural flight. To even say, okay, it has even, it has kick-started its flights around the world or the country. So as it is, it stands a project that has not seen the light of the day. And if he says he's 100%, then I don't know, his own yardstick of scoring himself. And I think the Minister of Aviation is one minister that we also need to do a proper review of. His recent activities calls to question his capacity to hold that position ab initio. Well, I must say, his recent activities calls to question a lot of things about his capacity to be in charge of that ministry.
Well, thank you for bringing that out, FUAD, because the report says that Hadi Sirika was supposed to be a breath of fresh air to the local aviation administration, as he's the first insider to lead the pack, and he also turned out to be the longest serving aviation minister in the country. And and
now the most destructive.
A lot of things, a lot of promises, let me put it that way, a lot of promises and pledges from the president to the aviation community pre-2015. We had, that there's supposed to be a new national carrier. We also had a plan to concession airports for efficiency. There was also the MRO, that's maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility, and also aircraft leasing company to service local operators. In addition is the creation of Aerotropolis at major airports nationwide, among 15 other components of the aviation transformation and modernization plans. Fast forward to 7 years later, and major, or should I say, gross underperformance of key deliverables in the aviation roadmap initiative. And looking at this, aside from all of the promises that we just mentioned now, FUAD, also let's not forget, the issues we had with aviation fuel, and also the forex issues that we have with foreign airlines.
Of foreign earnings for our foreign airlines. Again, performance review of this administration, if we are to do it ministry by ministry, I think there's hardly any of the ministries, apart from maybe the Ministry of Works, that maybe scale maybe they scale up a bit to maybe about 40-45% performance. I think across board, most of the ministries will score less than 20% in terms of performance. I think the aviation sector will score maybe a dismal 10% overall.
10%.
I'm telling you, and I've just even been too generous.
You are nice.
I'm just saying, because again, look, again, I talked about sloganeering. You just read out something now, aviation, something, reforms agenda. We are good at creating slogans and timelines. But the reality is that we create good ideas, we give timelines for these things. When it comes to implementation and delivery, we falter. And that's why you see the Minister of Aviation in less than 20 days to handing over. He's everywhere trying to do too many things at the same time and causing unnecessary disruption in the aviation sector. So I just think that again, the Nigeria Air, if Saturday will be nice, it is on Friday you will know. The initial step of that Nigeria Air was faulty, and I knew that they were going to eat the bricks, and that's what eventually happened. The question we are going to ask ourselves now, would the new government now continue with that process? Because if you are not careful, if the focus of the new government and whoever becomes the Minister of Aviation does not go in consonance with this particular plan now, all of the effort so far would have now been a wasted effort. God knows how much has been sunk into that project now. Because consultants, I'm sure a lot of consultants have been paid. If you remember, there was a problem with consultants too, and how much was paid to them. And whether the Minister of Aviation himself has a stake in one particular consultant that was mentioned. Look at the issue of logistics, flying around. I'm sure, experts, travels, a lot of millions of naira would have gone into this, quote and unquote, failed venture. But again, we'll see what will happen with the new government, whether we would eventually see Nigeria Air fly, if they see it as a priority.
All right, that is more details on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper. That is the big story in the The Presidential Transition Council unveils transition activities, warns unauthorized persons to stay away from Eagle Square. Transition activities in full gear. They've rolled out the schedule of activities. We have story here on page 6 of the Guardian. There are riders to it. Of course, the chairman of the PTC, that's the Presidential Transition Council, that's the secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, said, will proceed with Tinubu's inauguration despite ongoing litigations. Buhari to confer GCON titles on Tinubu and Shetima. Hand over transition documents on May 25. PSI to raise alarm. Okay. PSI to raise alarm, says foreign and local agents working to thwart inauguration. So, interesting days ahead for FUAD. Is there anything that you are looking forward to in particular as the schedule of events is being rolled out?
Inauguration, yeah, well, nothing major. These are just steps to eventual
FUAD, you may have to repeat yourself. I can barely hear you. I didn't hear the last 3 sentences that you said.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that this process is to eventual handover on May 29. And it's a long list of activities, a very long list of activities that would involve both local and foreign officials participating on different days. So it's a long one. So it's for me the ceremony of handing over, particularly, that we're seeing here, and maybe for the optics, for sake of history, a lot of people will really enjoy it. Like you said, we're going to keep our listeners up to speed with pictures, with videos, and also some analysis as they unfold. So eventually the inauguration will take place. The swearing-in will happen May 29, because that's what the law says. Until something else happens, because again, like I always say, the last cycle of the election is not complete until the court eventually, make judgments on all of the cases before it. But as it stands, the inauguration will happen May 29 in sacrosanct. We are going to have a handover. We are hoping to have a very peaceful transition. And I'm not going to go with people who are speculating violence or people trying to thwart the process. Again, the security officials have enough intelligence. They have enough resources to take care of anybody that wants to cause trouble. And so I wouldn't really want to bother myself with anybody trying to plan anything. The security officials to take care of anybody that tries to do that. We need peace in the land. We need to have a peaceful transition. And let us allow the courts to do their job too. Whatever the court decides, we'll move on with it eventually.
Well, just as FUAD has always mentioned, or just as we all know, it's important to reiterate that every election up until I think Jonathan, I think Goodluck Jonathan was the only one in 2015 who considered defeat and did not, go to court. So this is that's the only election that was not litigated, and that was in 2015. So that's just reiterating what Boss Mustafa said here, saying despite ongoing litigations, we'll go ahead with it. Tinubu's inauguration. So as we all look forward to the inauguration of the 16th president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to happen on May 29 at Eagle Square, Abuja, all eyes on Nigeria to see a smooth handover transition. More details of that on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Let's move on now. We also have here cash crunch cuts telecoms growth as operators lose 1 million. Let me just put it out that way. 1 million subscribers, and that is on page 3. So we're still having conversations on cash crunch, FUAD, and the riders.
We're not going.
Okay, I can barely hear you. Maybe you should move a bit. It's like network is the quality of the call is
it better now?
Yes, it's better. Thank you. You were saying.
No, what I'm saying is that it's easy to cause a destruction. It's easy to destroy something. To repair it is always a problem. So we probably may have to feel the effect of this cash crunch for some time to come. It's not always easy to cause these kinds of destruction. There are still businesses that have not gotten back from that needless cashless policy.
Well, there are riders to this particular story here. Teledensity drops by 0.53%. Broadband penetration loses 528,575 users. Subscribers experience hitches over new unified shortcodes. So now telco operators have lost about 1 million subscribers as of the end of the first quarter. And they're saying now that the drop in subscriptions could be attributed to the cash crunch that ravaged the country between February and March. And this was the fallout of the CBN policies on Naira redesign and cash withdrawal limit, which was supposed to be targeted at boosting the country's cashless policy. So now, there's, just as you have mentioned, it's a very long read. What we have is that in the company's audited financial report as of March 31st, confirmed the impact of cash crunch on the operations of telco operators. There's a lot of figures that you can get here, but then you can get more details on page 3. And speaking of unified shortcodes, there's some telco operators that have changed their shortcodes in recent times. MTN mostly. I hope people. I think people should go online. No, we'll try to give out the information here as well. But then the shortcodes have changed for a lot of. I don't know if you've noticed. For
yeah, I noticed. Okay. But I think this information are also in the public space for people who use them.
All right. Well, more details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. We also have here PEPC, INEC, Tinubu, APC kick against Atiku's request for live telecast of proceedings. Fuad, what are your thoughts? Do you think this should be broadcast live due to, Atiku and
Public
the PDP?
interest,
Yes, Atiku and PDP say that Nigerians are major stakeholders in what is going on at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. Do you think it should be live, there should be a live broadcast of it, or do you think not? Let me put it that way.
Well, again, you can look at it from two angles. If you're looking at, okay, this is a very important issue, the issue of public interest. Everybody seems so interested in seeing, what would happen at the court. And one may say, okay, yes, why don't you want to broadcast it? There's nothing to hide. It's nice to see the proceedings and all of that. On that basis, you might want to say, okay, yes, why shouldn't we have it, a live broadcast of the daily proceedings of the court? But again, it also depends on what the court feels and the mood of the court. In understanding how public sentiment may want to also sway decisions or even distract, the court processes in itself. Because what you are going to have is that, look, this era of social media, you are going to have too many people throwing too many analyses, over speculating, making prejudicial statements and all of that. Unfortunately for traditional media, we are trained not to do that. But for social media and other platforms, you are going to find a lot of people trying to overinterpret the court processes, even with their little knowledge of how court processes work. So if the court considers that would be too much of a distraction, because again, ultimately it would have to be the decision of the court. Whatever we say, it does not matter. The court will decide whether they want their proceedings to be transmitted live or not. But I'm saying that, look, whichever way the decision of the court goes on this matter, I'm sure that there's enough in terms of media reports to cover the proceedings of the court, whether it is put on TV or not. On a daily basis, the papers will report the daily proceedings of the court as it's ongoing. So if that's what we are going to get, so be it. But if the court grants that, look, it should be televised, we'll also move on with it. But I really feel that, look, I'm indifferent. Whether it is permitted or not, whichever ways, I'm sure people have enough information about court proceedings, and that there won't be a problem in terms of really giving the listeners or Nigerians the details of the process.
Thank you very much. More details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Also have here, Nigeria hopeful of $32.5 billion oil projects as NNPC eyes 1.8 million barrels per day in July. The story is on page 6 of the Guardian. And just very quickly, there are riders to it. It says NNPC clears $3.8 billion JV cash call debt. NCDMB worries over drop in oil contribution to GDP and revenue. Shell, Total, Bayelsa government seek speedy implementation of PIA, that's Petroleum Industry Act. So Nigeria may see the coming on stream of over $32.5 billion worth of oil and gas projects as NNPCL and international oil companies operating in the country have shown readiness to sign the final investment decisions on some projects. The development is coming as the country is expected to see its oil production rise to 1.8 million barrels per day in July. Well, we're thinking very high. I like that.
No.
We have very.
Again, these are mere projections.
We have tall dreams.
The last time we dropped from $1 million barrels per day to around 999. So remember,
yes.
The last report we reviewed was that Angola actually even got the highest production.
Over 1 million.
Daily production. Over 1 million. We dropped to less than 1 million. So if you are looking at 1.8, we need to ask how do we intend to do it, and we resolve the issue of oil theft, general more security. What were the issues that led us drop from 1 million and then for 1.8?
It's shaking again. I can barely hear you. I'm sorry. I can't hear.
Oh, is it better now?
Hello?
Is it better now?
Okay, yes. Please carry on.
So what I'm saying is that whatever made us to drop from 1 million barrels per day to less than 1 million, have we resolved all of those issues for us to be talking about 1.8 million barrels per day? So I'm hoping that the NNPC is not putting out this information just to excite us because of the report they got the last time. Just tell them something that we're looking at 1.8. The same way we do in the power sector. We are targeting 10,000 megawatts. We are targeting 20,000 megawatts. And we are still hovering around the same figure. So it's not just about targeting or projecting. It's about what exactly are you doing to achieve your plan. So I really would just take this as mere speculation. It may happen, it may not happen.
All right, thank you very much. More details on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper as Nigeria is hopeful of $32.5 billion oil projects as NNPC eyes 1.8 million barrels per day in July. Failed Ijora Bridge. Residents blame shoddy job and lack of supervision. The story is on page 8 of the Guardian. And what we have here is motorists and residents yesterday said failed portion of Ijora Lokpa, inward Ijora Loya Papa, opposite Water Corporation, may have been caused by lack of supervision by the Federal Ministry of Work and Housing, as well as parking of heavy-duty trucks in the area. So FUAD in recent times, or today, there's going to be a diversion, at Ijora Lokpa area, trying to fix the road there. One would think that that place would have some sort of good looks due to the fact that the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Works, they have their office station there, but then lack of supervision. What would you make of that lack of supervision? Now, not just on Ijora Lokpa road fixture or not, but generally speaking, as regards capital projects and all, supervision. What would be your thoughts generally speaking in this country?
Well, again, with supervision, again, we don't know how these contracts are issued. We don't even work in the Ministry of Works to know how they, supervise some of these projects to ensure that the quality that is expected is delivered. Because if you look at the picture of this particular road, it caved in practically. The pictures are all over social media, and it caved in. And it's not just about this particular Ijora road towards the bridge. We need to even ask ourselves, most of our public facilities, especially the bridges in Lagos, you have people cooking under it, people living under it, people running all manner of businesses under it, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. A lot of the bridges in Lagos are used in a way that should not be, because you go around, even that Ijora bridge, go to that Apapa side, look at all the bridges, you have containers parking under it, you have people selling black oil, you have people doing all manner of things. In fact, it's like a community is emerging. You see things and you are wondering, is this the way it's supposed to be done? So even before we talk about monitoring and supervision, how are we even handling some of these roads and bridges? It's part of the story says, look, heavy duty vehicles even park on that bridge. They park everywhere there, and some of them even defecate openly there. People just do a manner of things. I've seen a public toilet built under a bridge, a parking space. Lagos is almost chaotic, in the way we handle some of these things. So for supervision, I expect that you give a contract, you're supposed to have oversight functions. There are people employed to do some of these things, and if they don't do it, then what are the punitive measures? Who is checking who now? Because if a bridge that was done recently just caved in like that, then I think we need to have a second look at the way we supervise and handle some of these things. But the reality is that the way we handle some of our public infrastructure in Lagos, we need to have a second look at them.
So if we're going to be looking at maintenance culture then, because that's where you are driving at, because I was looking at supervision as regards, construction of, projects. We're looking at Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, where we had a conversation sometime that, these people take breaks, sometimes they don't work at night and all of that. That's the angle I was coming from as regards supervision. But now, if you are going into, the maintenance culture of, projects or infrastructure, especially in Lagos now, the Ministry of Works had on several occasions asked illegal squatters and all to vacate all these under bridges in Lagos. I remember sometime last year or so where there was a fire incident at the Eko Bridge. Akpongbo. Okay, yes, Akpongbo. Yeah. All right. And, there was that conversation again, and it was reiterated that people should vacate under bridges and all of that. So in what way do you think that we could get things right as regards maintenance culture? Should there be, because we have task force goes around and all of that. So, but then what do you think is going wrong as regards, the maintenance culture of all these projects?
When you give an order, do you follow it through? Do you ensure that your order is obeyed and implemented? It's not just about giving orders. I still see a lot of the bridges in Lagos today are still being occupied, under the bridges are still being occupied by miscreants. You have all manner of business activities going on, people cooking, people living under it. You have a block factory, you have public toilets, you have people selling black oil. They are still everywhere. It's only when an issue happens, you see the government react. We've talked about the idea of government being reactionary. They are being proactive. and being preventive about some of these things. We are quick to react. The things are there. You see the danger, but nobody cares until something happens, and then you see people making public statements and jumping up and down. The danger would always stare us in the face, but nobody pays attention. And those are the things why we question the current leadership in Lagos. Look, everybody sees Fashola as a super performer, not because he built things that nobody ever built in Lagos, but because of his attention to details. The fact that, look, when Fashola was governor, you knew that Lagos had a governor because of his ability to pay attention to little things. Because governance, again, is not about the major things or the big things. It's about the little things others will ignore that you pay attention to. That is governance in itself. It's important that we have a governor that is able to sit back and pay attention to major things and minor things that matter to the people. Go under the bridges. The things are still there. It's not just about issuing statements or giving orders and saying, the things you said, is it being implemented? Are people obeying it? When Fashola was going to clear the whole of Oshodi, he didn't just give an order. He made sure that that order was followed through. And that is why we have that sanity in Oshodi today. Again, the insanity is coming back anyway. If you go to Oshodi now, it's almost chaotic again. But look at when Fashola was going to clear the whole of Oshodi, and even I think Obalinde, it was not just about a statement or an order. He followed it through and ensured that, look, he was sustained. But now, again, things are changing. Go to Oshodi now and see that the chaos is returning. The only thing is that they are not selling on the road again. But the rail track, there's a lot of traffic now. The buses are still parking on the road. The chaos is returning back to Oshodi now because nobody's paying attention again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fuad. But that is the story on page 8. Residents are blaming shoddy job and lack of supervision for failed Ijora Olokwa Bridge. The story is on page 8. And that's all from The Guardian. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM. We're moving on now to The Nation newspaper. Don't forget that we're live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can watch the show live and as well drop your comments there as regards the conversation that's ongoing. And yes, at Mainland 98.3 FM. Let's move on now to The Nation newspaper. The major headline there: National Assembly, governors will back Akpabio. Abbas says Sule. Nasarawa helps, the writer says, Nasarawa helpsman assures APC's preferred aspirants of North's governor's support. So, APC governors from the North have resolved to support President-elect Bola Tinubu's choice of National Assembly presiding officers. And this is coming from Nasarawa State Governor Abdullahi Sule. And he spoke during separate meetings at the Nasarawa State Governor's Lodge with Senate President aspirant Godswill Akpabio and Deputy Senate President aspirant Barao Jibrin, as well as House of Reps Speaker aspirant Tajuddin Abbas and Deputy Speaker aspirant Benjamin Kalu. There's a whole lot of statements here as regards who is supporting what and what is not supporting what. However, then National Assembly and APC back and forth. Should we be looking forward to any sort of surprise on election day, or we just take it as it is, or we just go with the flow?
I'm not expecting any surprise. I'm just looking at the precedents we are setting. And the foundation we are setting, because again, when you read out the story now, it sounded somehow to me, but I don't know whether you picked that part of the story where they said the governors are supporting the choice of the president-elect for principal officers of the National Assembly. So it is the choice of the president-elect to choose the leadership of the National Assembly. If you look at the way it sounded, so it is the president-elect now that will choose the leadership of a different arm of government. So you understand what I'm saying?
So now it's not about the APC, micro zoning to individuals. Now it is the impact or the influence that the president-elect has in the choice of the party.
If you look at the way the National Working Committee made the announcement, and the fact that, look, the president-elect had to even cut short his trip, return back, spend 2 weeks, met with all of these people before he traveled back, you will know that, look, to a large extent, and the way the National Working Committee chairman has been saying it, you will know that to a large extent, I'm sure this list came from him, to a great extent, because the way everybody keeps saying that, look, I have to discuss with him, we have to talk to him, and now the governors are saying that the choice of the president-elect, they are members of the party, at least are ranking members. If they say this is the choice of the president-elect, so it's well for us to assume that, look, he came up with the list and just handed it over to the party to announce. But again, if that's the precedence they want to lay, we'll wait to see how it pans out.
All right. The Northern Elders Forum, in their own reaction to the controversy over the endorsement of candidates for National Assembly presiding officers, said the group will not campaign for selfish candidates. We also have the Publicity Secretary, Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, said the lawmakers should be allowed to choose principal officers based on merit and competence. The story is on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. But I don't think we're going to see that's coming from the Northern Elders Forum.
Okay, all right.
The Publicity Secretary of the Northern Elders Forum. Okay. Stories on page 4. We also have here, Akpabio praises Buhari's wife for African First Ladies building. That is on page 28 of the Nation newspaper. Just very quickly, so we can run into other stories. What we have on page 28. Yes, former Akwa Ibom State Governor Senator Godswill Akpabio has applauded Hajia Aisha Buhari on completion and inauguration of headquarters of African First Ladies Peace Mission in Abuja. He noted the inauguration is a clear demonstration of the resilience, commitment and dedication of the First Lady and her team towards ensuring peace and security in Nigeria and Africa.
You're also laughing at me.
I am not laughing. I am not laughing. I'm
inaugurated a building, and that's enough to show the commitment of the First Lady to women in Africa. How does that? Can we just move on to another story, please?
The story is on page 28 of the... The story is on page 28. I have no idea what you are talking about, FUAD. The story is on page 28 of the Nation newspaper. We also have here Matawale. Matawale is still in the stories. Yes, he's under probe now for 70 billion naira contract, says EFCC. And Zamfara State Governor Bello Matawale is under probe for mismanaging 70 billion naira. And EFCC is explaining that the action is the reason for the outburst of the governor against the EFCC and Chairman Abdul Rashid Bawa. So the story is that the 70 billion naira was sourced as a loan. Okay? It was sourced as a... Oh, no. Oh, so apologies. I don't think I have the right page for this. I'm trying to get the story. It was sourced as a loan for, several contracts. Anyways, let me just paraphrase now. For several contracts, and then, people were called to come and collect the money. Okay? And then when they were called to collect the money, they said the contractors now allegedly said that people came in and said, that they have to transfer the money to a certain account, and the money was traced back or something to the Zamfara governor. That's what those are the allegations that are being put out there. It's a very interesting one, but by then yes, by the EFCC. So that is what the story is about. And I don't know, can we tie this to the recent times of the letter that he put out in recent times saying that leave of absence should not be granted to some people, especially the CBN governor? Should it be tied to that in any way? I mean, because so just some few weeks ago, the only thing that we're talking about as regards Matawale was his performance at the elections. The fact that he didn't get a second term. That's as far as we know as regards Bello Matawale, and also some inconveniences in Zamfara State. But now in recent times, just after that letter came out, we've been hearing so many interesting allegations against the Zamfara State governor.
Well, I think the FCC has to be careful with media trial. And I think one of the callers said last time we reviewed the story of Matawale and the fact that he's now in the papers every day making statements. There's a back and forth between himself and the EFCC. I think it was the EFCC that also issued a statement that a lot of governors are under trial and they'll be investigated when they leave office. Yes. The reality is, as it stands today, Bello Matawale has immunity. But by May 29, his immunity ends. the EFCC at that point can call it in questioning and then begin the proper prosecution of his case. So what I'm saying is that, look, one would expect that by now, the EFCC would expect from even exchanging words with Bello Matawale, they'll be working with their lawyers to put in enough evidence against him for his prosecution, if he has any case to answer. Because again, people have also questioned the ability of the EFCC to see through a lot of their cases, the quality of prosecution they bring to bear in all of the cases they bring to court. Because it's not just to allege. Can you prove some of these things, which requires a lot of work and insight here?
Apologies to cut you short. I mean, I just want to ask this question. I remember I remember this. Do you remember that picture, the Obiano picture where he was drinking pure water, after he was picked up? And after that, we've not heard anything as regards that particular case.
That's what we are saying. That, look, it's not about the media trial and all of the things you do. Do you have enough? Because, again, I'm just saying that for guys you think are governors and all of that, and they have access to all manner of things. The reality is that anybody that steals also finds a way to conceal it, if you understand what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is that instead of engaging in media trial, the back and forth with Governor Matawale and the rest, the FCC should get himself serious with sitting down with their lawyers, to get enough evidence to prosecute these cases, so that it doesn't turn out like every other case that we have seen in the past that ends up with nothing at the end of the day. Matawale can continue to talk as a governor if he wants, but I think the FCC as an agency should refrain from having a back and forth with him. They should put up their evidence. By May 29, his immunity ends. Luckily, he's not re-elected as governor. So if there's any case against him, it's easy to pick him up and then start the prosecution process against him.
Well, more details in the Nation newspaper. It's not on page 4, just in case you're looking for it there. I checked. It's not. But if you go through the paper, it's somewhere in the papers. I hope it's not just a story that it's on the front page. All right. Above the masthead of the Nation, FUAD, I have a very interesting story here that says, we have spent 200 billion naira on postponed census, says NPC.
Sorry that I have to laugh. I just need it. But I don't want to get myself worked up.
We have spent money, so if we postpone.
200 billion what?
200 billion naira.
On something that has been postponed.
They had already spent it.
Is there a breakdown? Let's see whether there's a breakdown of how the money was spent.
Okay.
Before we postpone it.
The National Population Commission spent 200 billion naira in preparations for the postponed 2023 housing and population census. And that's coming from the chairman of the NPC, Nasir Isakwara. He said, what we've been able to spend is about 200 billion, but the 800 billion naira budget covers the costs of conducting the census. The government has given us 800 billion. But it is a budget, and we believe we may either spend up to that or not. The government has actually provided 224 billion, which we have utilized for the census so far. He added that though the commission underestimated the impact of the 2023 elections, there were elements of financial constraints. So that is all that I have for it. There's no breakdown as regards what exactly he meant by preparations for the 200 billion. It's very important that I put the billion. It's not million now. So 200 billion naira has been spent so far in preparation for a census that has been postponed, which means that by the time they pick up the project again, oh no, let me not, I'm thinking ahead of myself. Let me slow down now.
Just calm
over to you, FUAD.
Yeah. Let me take you from there. When this census was announced.
Yes.
When the census was announced, I raised questions about why we're insisting that we go ahead with a census that, number one, the reality of the Nigerian situation at this time would not let us do a thorough job. Because, again, the level of insecurity, how easy would it be for enumerators to go into local areas in the north, even in the southeast and all of that, to really enumerate people. That the reality is that we're not prepared. I also questioned whether we really have the money to conduct this census. We are running on budget deficit. There's a problem with our revenue and all of that. So I felt that, look, the reality is that, look, financially, logistics, in terms of logistics, and the reality of the country at this time, we are not prepared for this census. And it's something that we probably just have to abandon and look for the right time to do it. But somehow we kept getting this assurance that we are ready, we are going to do it, the money is available. Now we have been told that, look, the postponed census that we have not even started at all, 200 billion has been spent. And look, when they tell you they spend the money, I'm sure there's a list of something to cover how they spend that money. Again, it goes to show that, look, when we complain that there's no money in this country, when we complain that, oh, there's a problem with expenditure, again, it takes me back to the question I asked me the last time. Do we have a revenue problem or the way we spend money? I think this is reckless. I think this is irresponsible. And I think we need to look at the way we spend the limited resources of the country. This is unfortunate, really, Sandra.
Right. That's all. More details, or all the details, on page 6 of the Nation newspaper.
For anybody that's interested.
in knowing the fact that the NPC said they have spent 200 billion naira so far on the census that has been postponed. Stories on page 6. Finally, from the Nation newspaper, very quickly, Autumn names streets after 1990 coup plotter. And that is on page 26 of the Nation newspaper. 33 years after his involvement in a failed military coup, the late Major Gideon Orka has been immortalized by the Benue State Governor Samuel Otom. He named a major road in Makurdi after the key actor in the botched 1990 coup. Orka was executed by firing squad after he was found guilty as charged by the military regime of former President General Ibrahim Babangida. The insurrection, led by Benue-born soldier, was crushed by troops loyal to General Babangida. Now, what are your thoughts, Fuad? Just very quickly, as regards whether he named the street after a coup plotter, and if it's right or not, I don't know. By moral standards, I don't get. I guess that's where the story is coming from.
At the end of the day, at least we have something that Tom has done as governor in Benue State.
That's all right.
Is it not at least something has been put to his name? The governor of Benue State named the street after a former coup plotter. We need to ask ourselves now, what qualifies Gideon Orka to have it, a street named after him or a road named after him? That was a man that although plotted a coup against an illegal government, because every military government is seen as an illegal government in reality. Yes, we know the story of Gideon Orka. If he feels as governor that that's the only way to immortalize him, it's fine. But I'm saying it's like to know whether it was one that constructed that road or it was an existing road. But at least eventually, the governor of Benue State as is living, and at least we know that he has not done. He named a road after a former coup plotter. Very good one from him.
Well, his family seems to think otherwise. They are very happy with the immortalization of their brother by the governor of the state. Stories on page 26 of the Nation newspaper. You mentioned something that I think I picked interest in. The fact that, if Samuel Otom was the one who constructed that road, for him to name the road after.
Or it was an existing road.
Or was an existing. All right, we're rushing very quickly now, Fuad. Permit me. So I'll be rushing through major stories on the remaining two papers that we have. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. We're on to the Punch newspaper now, and the major headline there is saying Tinubu's inauguration. Programs begin Thursday. Federal government invites over 65 world leaders. And the writer said that stay away from inauguration venue if you don't have business there, says SGF. Buhari hands over transition documents to incoming president on Thursday, which is May 25. You can get all of the details of the inauguration on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. I also have here, 2 have been held over U.S. consular officials' killings. And that story is on page 27 of the Punch newspaper. We also have here very interesting story. There's so many interesting stories, but just very quickly, Osun workers protest as Adeleke begins payroll audit. So they are doing payroll audit just to know the amount of workers, just to get the amount of workers that Osun State has in its database. And the workers are protesting, saying the last time there was an audit, there were a lot of problems and they don't want the audit to happen. Very quickly, just in a minute, what do you think?
The audit is in order. It's important to know whether they are ghost workers. So I wouldn't blame the government for trying to audit the payroll because public officials and when it comes to payrolls. A lot of workers really added and all of that. So it's in order when it came to
Hello?
the
Hello? Hello? All right, I can't hear anything. All right, but then what I got was that the payroll audit is not. I think I got that part. But thank you very much for that. More details on page 12 of the Punch newspaper. All right, and moving on now, still on the front page of the Punch newspaper, I have here federal allocation drops again as federal government and states share 655 billion naira. That story is on page 17 of the Punch newspaper. All right. Yes, as the Federation Account Allocation Committee says, they shared 655.93 billion naira among the 3 tiers of government in April 2023. That is amongst the federal government received 248.81 billion naira. The states received 218.31 billion naira, while the local government councils got 160.6 billion naira. Whether or not it got to the local council, we'll know. The story is on page.
You won't get there.
The story is on page 17 of the Punch newspaper. Also, very important to note, NNPCL begins crude supply to Dangote refinery next week. The story is on page 4. FUAD. Things are happening live and direct at the Lekki Free Trade Zone.
It's okay. It's okay. To have that supply. We'll see where that arrangements will help with our domestic needs when it comes to refined fuel. We'll also see whether that arrangement would help to stabilize the cost of refined fuel locally. If the NNPC thinks that's their priority, and that's an arrangement they have with Dangote refinery. But we'll continue to ask the question. Why give all of this support to a private entity and then you abandon your own? That's a question we'll continue to ask.
All right. Thank you very much. I can barely hear you, Fuad. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I have to move on now to Vanguard newspaper. Okay, I can hear you now. Moving on now to Vanguard newspaper. The major headline, patients groan as doctors strike enters day 2. And the writers to that says, Exodus hits government hospitals as private hospitals record brisk businesses. Of course, so a lot of people now have to move out their family and loved ones out of the government hospitals as the doctors strike enters day 2. But the last time we had a conversation as regards this, I think the doctors are meeting with yes, they're meeting with the federal government today. That's the last time. But then I don't know what to make of this as regards our health sector. But interesting days ahead, as I guess. But more details on page 13 of Vanguard newspaper. And that is all that we can take this morning. Okay, and that's all we can take this morning on trends in the papers. Thank you very much for staying with us. However, don't touch the dial. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, where we'll be sharing one or two of the major trending stories and would like to get your thoughts and perspectives as regards those stories. This is Mainland 98.3 FM. My name is OMOBOLA Sandra. I'll be right back.
All have a future we desire. A next level from